Some Portlanders feel they're being nickeled and dimed by all the taxes and fees in Portland. Some have even left the city to avoid those fat taxes. What do you think? Are taxes too high in Portland? Is there any tax or fee that you would want to eliminate or reduce, or any area where you think a tax increase would be warranted? We'll start with Felicia Williams this time.
So taxes need to be going to a very specific identified need, because there are 4 things that the government's supposed to do. Number 1, protect its people. Number 2, identify problems and opportunities. Number 3, prioritize them. And number 4, fund them. So when we come up with a new tax, it should be going to something very specific, an unmet need or a very real opportunity. With the Trump tax cuts in place, I know that the business burden has decreased, but with the property taxes, we know that right now we're right at about the same level that we were when Measure 5 was passed in 1992. We have a significant property tax burden right now on homeowners. So I think what we need to start looking at is what other revenue sources do we have available to us? And there are some international models that we could implement here. It's just making better use of the assets that we have available to us, so then this way we don't put all the pressure on property taxes.
Stuart Emmons, are taxes too high in Portland? What would you do?
Well, Earl, we have a lot of things we need to do. I've been involved with the school bonds because we have 85 school buildings that need really replacing or certainly updating, modernizing. But I've talked to a lot of homeowners, and they're just saying enough. I mean, we're getting taxed out of our houses. I want to take the housing bond, for instance. That the voters stepped up and said we're going to allow or approve a $258 million bond for housing, and that was really great by the Portland voters. However, we're only getting 1,300 units of housing out of it. I want to use our dollars wisely, and I think we can turbocharge these bonds to get a lot more value out of them and to leverage private dollars as well. I'd like to see 4,000, 5,000 units coming out of that type of bond. So I would like to see our dollars used more wisely.
Thank you, Stuart Emmons. Loretta Smith.
Well, I think that the children's levy is an example of a good tax, because as a county commissioner, our responsibility is to take care of the most vulnerable. And with the children's levy, it helps communities of color, low-income children with programs like Head Start, programs that help young people and their families with wraparound services, Latino Network, NEA, self-enhancement. And what it does is it gives the young people a foundation to go forward, either through wraparound services or through food programs. And I think people can really wrap their arms around a children's levy. And I think that's why it's passed twice, and it's on the ballot this year. And I think it's something that voters should support.
Would you reduce or eliminate any taxes?
No. I would certainly, and I'm going to still support the children's levy. It's on the ballot. And I think it's an appropriate tax, because we don't have a good stream for prevention for families and young people, and that's what the children's levy does. It offers that safety net for our community, and I think it's very important and critical that we pass it again.
Okay, let's jump in with Andrea Valderrama, and I'm talking about taxes in general. Are taxes too high in Portland? Is there anything you would eliminate, anything that you'd raise?
As a homeowner in Outer East Portland, one of the things that I struggle with, like many of my neighbors, is the inequities of our property taxes. As we know, many of our homes are not in compression there. So again, when we're talking about particularly housing affordability, a first-time homeowner like me has to think about the long-term impact of an increased tax over time of my property. The only way that I can make it affordable right now is to live in a multi-generational setting with 8 other individuals. It's a very tight living situation, but I'm grateful for that. And so we do need to look at what is the reform necessary, what is the best impact. Certainly the resources are critical, but at what cost? Are we at the expense of those who are just barely making ends meet, working 40, 50 hours a week? And so that's something that City Council does have the opportunity to work, leverage their lobbying team, work in the state capitol to look at how to reform this system so that we are still getting those resources to the schools, still getting it locally. That would be a big change that I would continue to advocate for.
Andrea Valderrama, thank you. Joanne Hardesty.
Yes, I think some people pay too much tax and some people don't pay enough. I think our business community doesn't pay enough. They don't pay their fair share, which is why I support the Portland Clean Energy Fund initiative that will be on the November ballot. that measure does so much to help people who have not benefited from the economic prosperity that we see all around us in Portland. And it's because it's been a failure of leadership to actually make sure that everybody benefits excuse me, from that prosperity. And so I love that. I do think that homeowners are really being overtaxed. We pay the entire police and firefighter retirement directly from homeowners on their property tax bill. I don't think that's appropriate. They should have a retirement system like most public employees have. So there are taxes I'd like to reform. I'd also like to make sure we're protecting seniors and other vulnerable communities, that they're not being priced out of their home because of all these additional taxes.